Hey guys, welcome back to Brick System Brothers. My name's Nathan Masters. Today we're going to look at some of my old spaceship projects that I haven't really touched in a while. I've just been busy with other stuff. But I'd like to take a look at these and at least have them on the channel, even if I don't get them done. So let's check them out. So yeah, the three things I've picked out to look at today do have kind of a work in progress name that I had envisioned when I was starting them. This guy has been on the channel very briefly. About 2 years ago we talked about our building spaceships. So the Clairvoyance was the work in progress name that I had at the time. It was maybe like a mining vessel, very mechanical, kind of more rugged than sleek, just in terms of the aesthetic of the vehicle. And I had a couple of functions that I had been building around. I was trying to make working landing gear, and it does work. It was successful, but it just wasn't really shaping up how I had. I didn't have a specific end game in mind, I think, a specific vision for the project. So the Clairvoyance, if I spent more time on this, could be finished. But I'm kind of at the point where I don't know if I like the direction that it's going. The kind of wedge shape up in the front, not really sure about that. I do like the cockpit and the bridge and how that's shaping up, with the movable lights here. Kind of orthogonal lights, so your main ones could be up and then you could have secondary going down, just depending on where you need to look. And I don't remember how much I actually talked about this back on the early days of our channel, but I do know that we've seen this before. So I did want to include this in the lineup and talk about stuff that doesn't get finished. I'm not necessarily worried about it tying up pieces that I would like to use for other projects, because to be honest, I don't have a whole lot of other projects in the works right now. So if that does change and I start building something else, I might get to the point where I need pieces that are in here, but that hasn't really happened. I do like the kind of the flow from the pilot area here, and then when you get down the hallway you could kind of go down here into the main hold, or you could go to the airlock, and the airlock opens up like that. The way I designed this is, if you open the airlock, it actually seals everything else in the chamber. So you would basically be losing pressure in this entire area here and here if you needed to go into directly into space. Otherwise you could kind of dock to some kind of station, and then when you open the airlock and you're hooked up, you wouldn't have to worry about losing pressure. But in case of emergency, there is a way to open the airlock and still have pressure in at least part of the vessel. So that was kind of fun to design that and just work around. You're going from side build here, studs not on top, so kind of building this all out on plates and then attaching that to a regular brick wall. Some of the angles here, putting these on with the hinge bricks and just working out the geometry. And the way I usually go about this, kind of my default build method, is just iterations of building. You try different things until you get something that works, and then that usually just stays in place until something needs to change, or you kind of build around it if you really need to keep it. One of the things like that ended up being this engine here. One of the boosters on the side was very attached with some clips, and ended up getting a perfect geometry alignment with some clips to kind of put that at an angle. So the top of this engine piece actually pointing up at like 40 degrees or so. It's not even a perfect 45, just the way that the angles and the clips worked out. You can see one of them right there. And then kind of thinking about, would we have a standard hookup connection in the Lego space universe, and maybe if you have this size airlock, your ship would also have these connection ports, and so you'd kind of have a standard airlock system. Just kind of designing that in my head and thinking about that kind of thing as I build these, that's enjoyable to me, to kind of think about how it fits into the larger universe of other Lego spaceships and future projects possibly. So down in here, just a couple steps down, and incorporating this cylindrical dome and kind of going down in there, kind of tight quarters, not a lot of room just in terms of headroom, but that's kind of something you would expect to see on a spaceship. And then also looking at the bottom here with the doors that open up to your landing gear that does pop down. So just using some inverted techniques with the old hinge plates with the fingers there. Looking at this one regular, and then just attaching this one upside down, and then these 1x2 with the vertical bars to give you a place to grab it. And actually up inside there is some spring-loaded landing gear. So I think I talked about that a little more back on the original video. So that is the Clairvoyance, something that never got done, and I hesitate to say that it ever will be done. I think if I do move forward with any part of this, it would probably be the cockpit, the front of the vehicle, and try to integrate this into something else down the road. But the rest of this, it's not that I don't like it, it's just maybe a project that's been sitting this long, time to set it to the side. We'll look at the large one in a moment, but I did want to touch on something else that I had started. This was for more of a, think Avengers helicarrier vehicle, and this is going to be the bridge. So some inverted building up here on the front with these large windshields, kind of an angular style thing, and the skylight that I had going. Just trying out some different building techniques at the time, integrating some Technic as well. I would say for me, this kind of thing is more of a practice build just to work out techniques and get more familiar with the LEGO system than really something that I try to finish. And most of the time that's the case, where I just build something, and whether or not it gets done, you know, at least you still have some practice and you learn something. So that's always fun to have that kind of built in. Just looking at different ways to close up gaps, attaching things at a half stud offset, using the upside down part of plates, and also using the gaps that you create to help hold things together. I think this whole section does come off. It's been a while since I looked at this. So your roof section here comes off, and this is actually built standard, you know, studs up, and then the rest of everything in here except for the floor is upside down. So I do remember working with this for a while, just trying to figure out, you know, all right, I want computers to be right side up, our chairs need to be right side up, but then at a certain point you have to transition to the inverted studs to get these windshields to work out. So at what point does that work? And then how do you go about attaching the floor to all of that? So this is all stuff I had to work out. At this point when I was building these, I didn't use the internet much for references. I was doing more kind of a free build style, and I hadn't discovered a lot of the community that's out there posting techniques that they are today. And you know, if you don't follow a lot of builders, that's fine. It's still great if you're building on your own without seeing a lot of other people's material. But it is handy sometimes for inspiration and just to realize, oh, that can be done with the system. I didn't even think to do that. So sometimes it's nice to have the other projects to look at. But yeah, this one was going to be called the Seahawk. Again, something much larger than what I actually have here. It was going to be this up on an elevated part of a bridge area, so kind of up top. Think of like a cargo ship or a cargo vessel where you have the top part kind of the command center, and then everything else is maybe like a main deck, and the rest of the vessel kind of lower down. So you have a very nice view of everything going on from up here, and you don't necessarily need to be looking up all the time. You'd want to be looking down more. The rest of it was going to be quite large and never got up to speed just in terms of what I was building. So I think I had tried to get this done, and I got going into the details a little bit, and then I moved on. So this has been sitting for a while, and all this just kind of nestles back in together. Again, looking at using the gaps and everything to hold that in place, and that kind of thing. So yeah, looking at this one mainly with inverted building techniques. Didn't get much further than that. And now the main one that I actually think I will carry on with. This is the Meritobak. Inspiration for this guy is mainly the Guardians of the Galaxy ships. So they all kind of follow a similar pattern. They're called an M ship. and it has these angular wings and then kind of an angled down cockpit area. Then on the back, there's various flaps and ailerons and all that stuff. So this would fit right in at home next to the Milano spaceships that you see in Guardians of the Galaxy. That's kind of the theme that I would designing this in, but also doing a little bit of my own thing with the dimensions and the spacing. So the Meritobak is much further along than the other two projects that I've looked at today. In fact, from the bottom, the exterior of the hull I would consider pretty much done. Still plenty of work to do up on the top here. There is a little space inside, and I was going to put the boarding ramp here in the back, so that does drop down. I still need to work on the strength of that attachment, because it's just a little hinge plate right now. Quite a bit left to do with the tail and how far back that's going to come here. But already working on some of the features of the wing, where we're going to have these movable flaps. The engines up front here, not the main engines, but maybe some stabilizers. So on the bottom, these have a little pulse engine, kind of like the stuff you see in Guardians of the Galaxy, but not exactly the same. So these are on an angle, they can pivot. I'm actually thinking I'll change these out with the other large type of engine piece that I've covered in our Awesome Piece series. The Hold Up, What's That Awesome Piece? I think it was number 8, and talked a lot about that. That would be a larger engine. I think it would look better with the scale of the rest of the vehicle. The main engines are kind of going to be on either side here up at the top. So the intakes I've built up a little bit on either side of the canopy here, and then they would continue through towards the back. There isn't really any engine detail behind it yet. I think I'd fill this in with some of the tubing and try to actually build in some engine details. And then it does pick up back here, so some of the exhaust going towards the back. And then I've kind of got two different things going on back here. There's the main exhaust, so that gives you the forward thrust, and then there's actually two different sizes of those. So your main one's on the outside, secondary on the inside, smaller. And then there's also the hovering ones that would kind of give you the pitch. So you could pitch down very quickly, or you could use these to hover in the back here, pointing down. And there's actually very compact techniques holding this in place that I have built up separately using some different colors. So I might look at that sometime. But really, the engines here coming together very nicely, using some of these older pieces that you don't see a lot of today, using some barrels. And now that they've released the barrel piece in black, I think I'll switch those out. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way the main engine exhaust system came together and how sleek that looks down there. So to hover, you would actually be able to use the two engines in the back that point down and the engines on the wings, and then that would give you 4 points of lift, kind of spaced around the vehicle. I think would be somewhat realistic. The engines themselves, not really based on current technology, but coming at it from an engineering perspective, just trying to stay true to physics. You wouldn't, if you just had these two engines at the back, and you're trying to hover, well, those would be putting all of the thrust in the back, and you'd just be doing that all the time. So we want to balance it with something up front, and that's where these come in. So you have your lift on the wings, and then your lift in the tail, and you have 4 of those, so you can really keep that really stable. Still plenty of work to do here, and it's been something that's been sitting for a while. So I'd like to do some nice details up here for the pilots, multiple rows of seats here, at least 2, top and bottom, kind of like probably some of the Star Wars stuff that's out there. But again, this pretty much 100% original. The general shaping takes inspiration from Guardians of the Galaxy, spaceships, and aircraft, but in terms of the details of the design, just something that I've been working out myself. And the other thing that I'm really happy with so far is the Technic frame. I've been picking it up and carrying it by these two beams right here, which connect to everything else in the entire frame. Even the wings are built out, and it's all been covered up now with plating, but these wings are a brick thick inside, and then on the top and bottom there's plates locking everything in. And using the Technic frame for this really ensures that there's maximum stability. I can kind of sling this around all over the place and not worry about stuff falling off. So that was one of the main things I wanted to build around, just to make sure that this thing is stable. So I put this upside down just to show you guys the landing gear, and then I'll call it good. This is the extracted position, so these would be down, and when it's resting on the table, these are all in contact. So it just rests on the back here and then on these 2 feet. To fold it up for flight, it's just a matter of 2 pivot points. So one at the base of the foot right here, the other one up inside on the frame, and then having a recess in the bottom of the frame for the foot to go and kind of click in. And then that gets completely recessed into the bottom of the frame for flight. You can reduce your drag there, and actually looks really slick flying around like that. So I had to take some stuff off to flip it upside down, and I guess I didn't take them back out, but that's the Meritobak. So there's 3 of my old projects. These 2 probably not going to pick back up. Just looking at this one, not really happy with the direction it's going, but again, maybe keeping this for future project. This one nowhere near far enough along to even continue, and I don't know if I want to reuse this complete cockpit for anything else. But the Meritobak definitely well into the shaping stage, and maybe going back to redo some of the wing engines, but in general a craft that is slowly but surely taking shape, and I'd like to see it completed. We'll probably see more of this guy in the future, but that might be it for the Clairvoyance and the Seahawk. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time on Brick System Brothers.